Our honeymoon is going to be paid for by that useless old man, my love. He won't even suspect a thing." Those words came from the mouth of my own son, Robert, on a Saturday morning, 1 hour before his wedding. And you know what hurts the most? He was laughing when he said it. So do me a favor. Listen to this story until the end. And also share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. Afterwards, tell me which part of it truly touched your heart, and from which city you're listening to me. My name is Stephen Miller. I'm 72 years old, and today I'm going to tell you something that forever changed the way I see the word family. Because sometimes, son, the people we love the most are the ones who disappoint us the most. It was Saturday morning, Robert's wedding day. I had woken up early, as I always do. By 5:30, I was already up drinking my black coffee in the kitchen, looking out the window as the sun was just beginning to light up the streets of Phoenix. That morning was special. My only son was getting married. After so many years of waiting, I was finally going to see Robert start his own family. I had spent months preparing everything, excited like a child on Christmas. Robert had slept at my house the night before. It was tradition, I told him. The groom can't see the bride on the wedding day before the ceremony. That's how your mother and I did it. He just nodded without much enthusiasm. But I thought it was just the normal nerves any man gets before getting married. Danielle. His fiancée is a very good young woman. A dentist, hard-working, she always treats me with kindness. From the first time she came over for lunch, I liked her very much. She's one of those women who still respect their elders, who know what family means. When Robert got up that morning, I had already been awake for hours. He came down to the kitchen in his pajamas with that just-woke-up face he's had since he was a child. "Good morning, Dad." "Good morning, son. Did you sleep well?" "More or less. I was nervous." I made him breakfast. Scrambled eggs, warm tortillas, refried beans, just how he likes them. I wanted this special day to start perfectly for him. While he ate, Robert was quiet. I thought it was normal that all grooms get like that before the ceremony. I asked him a few questions about the preparations, if he hadn't forgotten anything important. He answered in monosyllables, his head somewhere else. "Everything good with the guests?" I asked. "Yeah, Dad. All under control." "And the suit, is it ready?" "Yeah, it's upstairs." The conversation was dry, but I didn't want to press. It was his day. He had the right to be nervous. After breakfast, Robert went up to his room to shower and start getting ready. The ceremony was at 3 in the afternoon at St. Michael's Church, the same one where I married Mary Grace 45 years ago. May she rest in peace. I stayed in the living room trying to watch TV, but my mind was racing, thinking about everything that was going to happen that day. The ceremony, the party, seeing my son happy next to a good woman. After so many years alone after Mary passed, I was finally going to have a complete family again. It was around 10 in the morning when I heard Robert talking on the phone in his room. His voice was loud, cheerful, very different from how he had been with me during breakfast. I thought he was talking to a friend arranging last-minute details, but something in his tone caught my attention. It sounded, I don't know how to explain it, like he was bragging, mocking. It wasn't the voice of a nervous man before his wedding. It was something else. I got up from the armchair and walked towards the staircase. It wasn't my intention to eavesdrop, but Robert's voice was very clear from the second floor. He was speaking in that tone young people use when they think no one is listening. "No, my love, I'm telling you, it's all taken care of," he said. "The old man already paid for everything, 5-star hotel meals, tours, all inclusive. We only bought the plane tickets, and that's it." He laughed a laugh I had never heard from him before, a laugh that chilled my blood. "I swear it's that easy, Danielle. Our entire honeymoon is going to be paid for by that useless old man, and he won't even suspect a thing. I've been handling the poor guy like this since I was a kid. I make him believe I'm the perfect son, and he just pulls out his wallet without asking. My world shrank in that moment. My legs started to tremble. I grabbed the banister to keep from falling. "What do you mean, do I feel bad?" Robert continued. "Bad about what the man lives alone in that big house. He has nothing to spend his money on. Better that it serves us right. Besides, that's what parents are for, to support their children. He brought it on himself by spoiling me so much." Another laugh. Louder. More cruel. "No, no, my love. He won't notice a thing. You'll see when we get back from Maui, we'll tell him how incredible it all was. We'll show him pictures. And the poor guy will get all emotional thinking he made us happy. It's a piece of cake." I stood there holding on to the banister, feeling something break inside me. Something I had been building for 37 years. Something I thought was unbreakable. "Do I love him?" I heard Robert say. "Oh, Danielle, don't be so dramatic. Of course I love him. He's my dad. But that doesn't change the fact that he's a naive old man who's easy to handle. As long as he's happy believing he's the best dad in the world, we live comfortably. It's a mutual benefit." Silence. Robert was listening to what Danielle was saying on the other end of the line. "No, my love," he continued. "You don't have to feel bad. He's happy this way. He likes to feel useful. He likes being the generous dad. If we didn't give him that opportunity, he'd probably even feel sad. Deep down, we're doing him a favor." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe properly. 37 years of being a father. 37 years of sacrifices, of working hard to give him the best, of feeling proud of my son. And this was what he thought of me. A useless old man. A naive old man. An old man who's easy to handle. "Hey, my love," Robert said. "I have to hang up now. The photographer is coming in an hour, and I still have to shower. But don't worry, everything's going to be perfect. The useless old man already took care of everything." He hung up the phone. I just stood there at the foot of the stairs, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. In less than 5 minutes, everything I thought I knew about my son had changed forever. But you know what, son, in that moment, something else woke up in me. Something that had been dormant for many years. Something Robert had never known about his father. Because if there's one thing I learned in 42 years working at the bank, it's that nobody, absolutely nobody, should underestimate Stephen Miller. And my son was about to learn that the hard way. I stood there for I don't know how many minutes, trying to process what I had just heard. Robert's words kept bouncing around in my head like ping-pong balls. Useless old man. Easy to handle. A piece of cake. You know what the most painful part of all this is, son? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was realizing that maybe Robert was right. Maybe I had let myself be handled easily all these years. I slowly went up to my room. I closed the door, and I sat on the bed I shared with Mary Grace for so many years. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from sadness, from rage. A rage I hadn't felt in decades. I heard the water running in Robert's bathroom. He was taking a shower, getting ready for his big day, probably singing, happy, thinking about how he had once again fooled his useless old man of a father. I grabbed the phone from my nightstand. I had to make a call. But first I needed to think things through. I wasn't going to act on impulse like a young boy. I was going to be smart, strategic. You see, for 42 years I worked at the National Bank. I started from the bottom, as an office boy. But I made it to regional manager. You know how you get to that position, son? Not just with good intentions. You get there by being astute, by knowing how to read people, by knowing when someone is playing you for a fool. And I had been blind, completely blind. I thought about all those years, all the times Robert came home with an emergency. The car that broke down and needed an expensive repair. The training courses that would open so many doors for him, but that I had to pay for. The outings with friends where he always forgot his wallet. Dad, can you lend me $1,000? I promise I'll pay you back next paycheck. Dad, I got a flat tire, and the mechanic says I need 2 new ones. Dad, my boss invited me to dinner and I can't look bad. Can you give me money for the bill? And me, like an idiot, always pulling out my wallet, always believing it was bad luck, that they were real emergencies, that my son just needed a little help to get ahead. But they weren't emergencies. It was his way of life, his way of seeing his own father. The water in the bathroom shut off. Robert had finished his shower. Soon he would come down. He would ask me if everything was okay. He would give me some fake hug. Maybe he would even say, "Thanks for everything, Dad." With that smile I now understood was completely false. I dialed the number I had saved in my notebook, a number I hadn't used in months, but that I knew by heart. The Grand Hyatt in Maui. How can I help you? This is Stephen Miller. I have a reservation for next week under the name Robert Miller. One moment, sir. Let me look. Yes, here it is. Presidential suite for 7 nights all-inclusive. How may I assist you? I need to cancel that reservation. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Cancel, sir. But the reservation is paid in full. It's a shame to cancel on such short notice. It doesn't matter. Cancel everything. The suite, the spa services I booked for the lady, the tours, the special dinners. Everything. Mr. Miller, I must inform you that due to hotel policy canceling with less than 48 hours notice, we cannot refund the money. I understand perfectly. I don't want a refund. I just want the cancellation. Another longer pause. Are you sure, sir? We're talking about a considerable amount. I'm completely sure. Cancel everything right now. Very well, sir. I'll proceed with the cancellation. May I ask the reason? It's for our internal records. Let's just say there was an unexpected change of plans. I hung up the phone. First call made. But it wasn't the only one I had to make. I looked in my notebook for the number of the travel agency where I had booked the special tours. The Sunset Catamaran Cruise. The private guided tour of the Haleakala volcano. The romantic dinner at the floating restaurant. Maui Adventure Tours. Good morning. This is Stephen Miller. I have several reservations for next week that I need to cancel. As I explained what I wanted to cancel, I heard Robert's footsteps coming down the stairs. He was whistling a song. Whistling, as if it were the happiest day of his life. Dad, everything okay? He shouted from downstairs. Everything's perfect, son, I replied. Just making a few work calls. A lie. Just like the lies he had been telling me for years. I finished canceling the tours. Then I called the Island Grill where I had made special reservations for 3 nights. I canceled everything. I called the hotel spa where I had booked couples treatments for Robert and Danielle. I canceled everything. I called the dive shop where I had prepaid for private lessons for both of them. I canceled everything. With every call I made, I felt like I was removing a blindfold, like I was waking up from a dream that had lasted 37 years. Robert came up to find me. Dad, are you coming for more breakfast? I made you fresh coffee. I looked at him. There was my son, the boy I had raised with so much love, offering me coffee, with that smile I now knew was a lie. He was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked happy, relaxed, without the slightest idea of what had just happened. "I'll be down in a moment, son. I'll finish these calls and we'll go together." "Everything okay? You look a bit serious." "Everything's perfect. Just some old work stuff, loose ends." Robert nodded and went back downstairs. I stayed there, sitting watching my son walk away, not knowing that his paradise honeymoon had just turned into a nightmare. But I wasn't finished yet. I picked up the phone again and dialed another number. This was the most important one of all. "American Airlines. How can I help you? I need information about a flight. The passengers are Robert Miller and Danielle Morris. Flight on Sunday morning from Phoenix to Maui." "One moment. Yes, the reservation appears here. Are you one of the passengers?" "I'm Robert's father. He asked me to check the flight details." It was a lie, but I needed that information. "The passengers have a Sunday flight at 8:30 a.m., arriving in Maui at 11:45. Are there any changes you need to make?" "No, not for now. Just confirming the times." I hung up and sat there thinking. Robert and Danielle would arrive in Maui on Sunday at noon. They would go directly to the hotel, excited, carrying their suitcases, imagining the perfect week that awaited them. And they were going to get the surprise of their lives. I looked at the clock. It was 11 in the morning. In 4 hours, Robert would be getting married, believing he had his father wrapped around his finger, believing he had won once again. But in less than 24 hours, when he was standing at the reception of that hotel in Maui, he was going to realize who Stephen Miller really was, and that this useless old man, nobody, absolutely nobody, played him for a fool, not even his own son. I went down to the kitchen where Robert was waiting for me with a steaming cup of coffee. He had put on a light blue shirt and looked, I don't know how to explain it, calm, like someone who has everything under control. "Are you done with the calls, Dad?" "Yes, son, everything's taken care of." And I wasn't lying. Everything had been perfectly taken care of. Robert poured himself more coffee and sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where he had eaten breakfast since he was a child, where Mary Grace used to prepare his favorite meals, where I helped him with his homework. "Dad," he said, "I wanted to talk to you about something." My heart sped up a little. Was it possible he was going to confess what he had said on the phone, that he had even a little bit of a conscience? "Tell me, Robert. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us. For the honeymoon gift. For all your support during these months of preparations." He looked me straight in the eye. And you know what the most impressive thing was? He seemed sincere, completely sincere, as if he really felt gratitude. "It's my duty, son. You're my only child." "No, Dad. It's not a duty. It's love. And Danielle and I value it very much. We know you spent a fortune on that trip." A fortune. He was right about that. 2 full years of my pension had gone into that reservation. 2 years of working from age 16 to 58. 2 years of waking up at 5 in the morning. Of putting up with grumpy bosses. Of counting every dollar to be able to save something. "It gives me great joy to be able to do this for you," I said. And in that moment, something strange happened. For a second, I remembered the real excitement I had felt when I made those reservations. The genuine thrill of giving my son something special. "Danielle is super excited," Robert continued. "Last night she couldn't sleep from the excitement. She says she's never been to such a luxurious place." Danielle. The poor girl had no idea what her future husband had said about me that morning. She did seem to genuinely appreciate the gift. She's a good girl, Robert. Take care of her. Of course, Dad. I love her very much. We sat in silence for a moment drinking coffee. And in that silence, I thought about all the times we had had breakfast like this. Father and son. Chatting quietly in the kitchen. The first time Robert brought home his report card. Proud, because he had gotten all A's. I was so happy I bought him a new bicycle. The time he came home crying, because a girl in his class didn't want to be his girlfriend at the school festival. Mary made him hot chocolate. And I explained to him that there would be other girls. The day he graduated from college. He came home with his diploma excited and told me, "Dad, all of this is thanks to you. I never lacked anything for my studies." That night I cried with joy in my room. When had all that been lost? When had my son stopped seeing me as his father and started seeing me as his personal bank? "Dad, are you okay? You look thoughtful." "I'm fine, son. Just remembering things." "Like what?" "Your childhood, when you were little and you told me you wanted to be like me when you grew up." Robert smiled, a smile that seemed genuine. "I still want to be like you, Dad. You're a great man." Those words hurt me more than the ones I had heard over the phone. Because in that moment, seeing him sitting there speaking to me with affection, I remembered the boy he had been. The boy who ran to hug me when I came home from work. The young man who proudly introduced me to his first girlfriends. And I wondered what had happened. When did it become this Robert? I said, "Do you think I've been a good father?" The question surprised him. He thought for a moment before answering. "Of course you have, Dad. The best father anyone could have. You've always been there for me. You've always given me everything I've needed." "Everything you've needed?" "Yes. Education, a home food, emotional support. Even when I was an adult, you've always helped me when I needed it." There was the key word. Helped. For him, everything I did was help, as if it were my obligation to support him for life. "And what have you done for me, Robert?" The question disconcerted him. I could see in his eyes that he didn't know what to answer. Well, Dad, I try to be a good son, to visit you, to include you in my life. When was the last time you visited me without needing something?" Silence. Robert stared at his coffee cup, searching for an answer he couldn't find. "Dad, I don't understand where you're going with this." "Just curious, son. Things an old man thinks about." I lied. I knew perfectly well where I was going. I wanted to see if Robert was capable of recognizing even a little bit that our relationship had been completely one-sided for years. Robert looked at his watch. "Hey, Dad, it's already noon. In an hour, the photographers arrive for the groom's photos. Do you think I should go get ready?" "Of course, go get ready." He got up from the table and gave me a hug. A strong hug. One of those that seemed sincere. "Thanks for everything, Dad. Seriously, I don't know what I would do without you." He went up the stairs, whistling again. And I sat there with those last words bouncing in my head. "I don't know what I would do without you." Well, Robert, you're about to find out. I got up and washed the cups. Then I went to my room and took my suit out of the closet. A dark gray suit I had tailored especially for the wedding. I wanted to look impeccable in the photos. I wanted my son to be proud of his father. What irony. While I was changing, I continued to hear Robert moving around in his room, preparing for what he thought would be the happiest day of his life. And technically, it was going to be. Because that day, he was going to marry a good woman who truly loved him. But it was also going to be the day he would discover that his father was not the useless old man he thought he was. I looked at myself in the mirror. 72 years old, white hair, some wrinkles, but a straight back and a firm gaze. For decades, this had been the face of a man who let himself be manipulated by paternal love. But today, for the first time in years, it was the face of a man who had regained his dignity, and Robert was about to meet that man. At 1 p.m, the photographers arrived. 2 young men with professional cameras and a lot of energy. Robert came down dressed in his pearl gray suit, silver tie, and well-shined black shoes. He looked handsome, elegant as a groom should on his wedding day. "All right, Mr. Robert," shouted one of the photographers. "Ready for the most important photos of your life." Robert smiled for the cameras. That perfect smile he had learned to use since childhood when he wanted something from me. They asked me to join for some father and son photos. We stood in the living room next to the portrait of Mary Grace that hangs on the main wall. "Perfect, Mr. Stephen. Put your hand on your son's shoulder. Like that. Now both of you smile. Click, click, click. Beautiful photo. You can see the affection between you two." If the photographer knew what I had heard that morning, he wouldn't have said that. They continued taking photos throughout the house. Robert posing on the stairs at the entrance in the garden. In every photo, he looked happy, excited, like a man living the best day of his life. And he probably was. After all, he was marrying a woman who loved him. He was going on a honeymoon that he believed would be spectacular, and he had once again fooled his useless old man of a father. "Mr. Stephen," the photographer said to me, "what does it feel like to see your son getting married?" "It's very emotional," I replied. "Robert has been the joy of my life since he was born." And I wasn't lying. Until that morning, he had been exactly that. "And are you excited about the honeymoon?" He told us they're going to Maui. "Yes, very excited. I hope it's an unforgettable trip for them." Robert looked at me with that smile of his, thinking I was still the same old fool. "My dad is the best in the world," he told the photographer. "Without him, this wedding wouldn't have been possible." More photos. More fake smiles. More acting. At 2:30, the photographers packed up their equipment. "See you at the church, Mr. Robert. We're going to get there early to capture the guests arriving." They left. The house fell silent again. Robert poured himself a glass of water and sat on the living room sofa. "Dad, are you ready?" "Almost. I just need to put on my tie." "Nervous. Should I be?" Robert laughed. "No, Dad. Everything's going to be perfect." Perfect. What an interesting word. I went up to my room to finish getting ready. I put on the navy blue tie I had bought especially for the occasion. I combed my white hair back. I put on a little of the cologne Mary used to buy me. I wanted to look good in the photos. But above all, I wanted to maintain my dignity throughout the ceremony. Because it was going to be difficult. It was going to be very difficult to stand there. Watching my son exchange vows of love and honesty, knowing what he really thought of me. As I adjusted my tie in front of the mirror, I thought of Mary Grace. What would she have done in my place? Would she have confronted Robert directly? Would she have canceled everything like I did? Mary was more diplomatic than me. She always found gentle ways to correct Robert when he misbehaved. But this was different. This wasn't a childish prank. It was calculated adult cruelty. I went downstairs and found Robert checking his phone. "Everything all right, son?" "Yeah, Dad. Just checking some messages from friends who are already at the church." "And Danielle, how is she?" "Nervous, but excited. Her mom says she looks beautiful in the dress." Danielle. The poor girl who was getting married without knowing what kind of man her fiancé was. A part of me wanted to protect her, to warn her in some way. But another part knew it wasn't my place. Some lessons everyone has to learn for themselves. Robert, I said, I want to ask you something before we leave for the church. Tell me, Dad, do you think Danielle loves you for who you are or for what you can give her? The question threw him off. I could see in his face that he wasn't expecting it. Well, of course she loves me for who I am, Dad. Why do you ask that? Just curious. It's a question I sometimes ask myself about relationships. Danielle isn't a gold digger, if that's what you're implying. She has her own career, her own money. She doesn't need anything from me. What irony. Robert defending Danielle from being a gold digger when he himself was exactly that with me. I'm very glad to hear that, son. Relationships should be based on genuine love, not convenience. Robert nodded, not catching the irony in my words. Exactly, Dad. True love is when you love someone without expecting anything in return. I had to control myself not to laugh, or not to cry. I wasn't sure which of the two emotions was stronger at that moment. Is it time to go? I asked. Robert looked at his watch. Yeah, we better get going. Saturday traffic can be heavy. We left the house together. Robert locked the door, and we walked to my car. A 2018 Chevy Malibu that I had bought when I retired. It's not luxurious, but it's comfortable and reliable. During the drive to the church, Robert was quiet, looking out the window. I drove slowly, perhaps enjoying the last moments of tranquility before the ceremony. Dad, he said suddenly, do you ever regret anything in your life? Another unexpected question. Of course, son. We all regret something. What do you regret? I thought carefully about my answer. I regret not being stricter with you when you were young, forgiving you everything so easily. I don't think I did you any favors. Robert was quiet for a moment. You think you spoiled me? What do you think? I don't know, I've never really thought about it. We arrived at St. Michael's Church. There were already several cars parked outside. The guests were beginning to arrive. Elegantly dressed families. Robert's friends. Danielle's co-workers. I parked the car and we sat there for a moment. Robert, I said, I want you to know that no matter what happens in life, you will always be my son. That will never change. He looked at me strangely. Dad, why are you telling me this? You sound like something bad is going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen, son. It's just that you never know what the future holds, and I wanted you to know that. We got out of the car and walked towards the entrance of the church. The same church where I married Mary 45 years ago. The same church where we had baptized Robert when he was a baby. The guests greeted us, congratulated us, told us how exciting the day was. Robert received all the comments with that smile of his. That perfect performance. And I smiled too. Because I knew something that no one else in that church knew. In less than 24 hours, when Robert was standing at the reception of a hotel in Maui, with no reservation, no presidential suite, no romantic tours, no special dinners, he was finally going to understand who his father really was. He was going to understand that Stephen Miller was not a useless old man. He was a man who had waited 37 years to teach him a lesson he would never forget. We entered St. Michael's Church, and the scent of fresh flowers hit me immediately. Danielle had chosen white roses and lilies to decorate the altar. The same altar where I had sworn eternal love to Mary Grace decades ago. The church was slowly filling up. I recognized several families from the neighborhood, my friends from the bank, who had known Robert since he was a child, his co-workers. Everyone smiling, everyone excited to witness what they believed would be a celebration of true love. Mr. Stephen, Mrs. Carmichael, my lifelong neighbor, greeted me. What a beautiful day. Robert looks so handsome. Thank you, Mrs. Carmichael. Yes, he's very excited. And how are you feeling? Your only son getting married. Very proud. I lied. Very proud of him. Robert walked away to greet his friends who had arrived. I watched him hugging them, laughing, receiving pats on the back. The perfect groom on his perfect day. I sat in the front pew on the right side as befits the father of the groom. From there I could see everything. The guests arriving, the floral arrangements, the altar where my son would exchange vows he promised to keep. At 2:45, Danielle's family arrived. Her mother, Mrs. Evans, an elegant woman in her 50s. Her father, Mr. Mitchell, a public accountant, a serious but kind man. And her 2 younger sisters dressed in pink as bridesmaids. Mrs. Evans came over to greet me. Mr. Stephen, what a joy. Finally, our children will be family. It's an honor, Mrs. Evans. Danielle is an exceptional young woman. And Robert is too. It's clear you raised him very well. He's a hard-working, responsible young man. If only she knew what I had heard that morning. We did what we could, my wife and I replied. May she rest in peace, Mrs. Mary. I'm sure she's very happy watching this moment from heaven. I thought about that. Would Mary be happy, or would she be as disappointed as I was in what our son had become? At 3 o'clock sharp, the music began to play. Father Gonzalez, who had officiated my wedding and baptized Robert, appeared at the altar dressed in his white vestments. Robert walked to the altar, accompanied by his best man, Jacob, his best friend since high school. He stood on the right side, nervously adjusting his tie. For the first time that day, I saw him genuinely nervous. Maybe because he knew that in a few minutes he would be making solemn promises before God. Promises of honesty, fidelity, respect. Words that sounded strange coming from someone who that very morning had called his own father a useless old man. The music changed. It was time for the bride's entrance. The church doors opened and Danielle appeared on Mr. Mitchell's arm. She wore a simple but elegant white dress, a long veil that trailed slightly, and in her hands a bouquet of white roses. She looked beautiful, radiant as a woman should on her wedding day. The entire church stood up. She walked slowly down the central aisle, smiling with tears of happiness in her eyes. When she reached the altar, Mr. Mitchell kissed her on the forehead and placed her hand in Robert's. "Take good care of her son," Mr. Mitchell whispered to Robert. "With my life," Robert replied. And in that moment, seeing them standing there together, so young, so full of hope, I felt a pang in my chest, not of regret for what I had done, but of sadness for what Robert had lost without realizing it. He had lost the opportunity to have a genuine relationship with his father. He had exchanged sincere love for calculated manipulation. And the worst part was he didn't even realize it. Father Gonzalez began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union in matrimony of Robert and Danielle." As the priest spoke, I watched my son. He looked happy, excited, totally focused on Danielle. In that moment, he seemed like the good boy he had been as a child. "Marriage is a sacred institution," Father Gonzalez continued, "based on love, mutual respect, honesty, and trust." Honesty. What a powerful word. "Robert," said the priest, "do you promise to love Danielle in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty, in good times and in bad, until death do you part?" "I do," Robert answered in a firm voice. "Danielle, do you promise to love Robert in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty, in good times and in bad, until death do you part. I do, Danielle answered, her voice breaking with emotion. They exchanged rings. Robert placed the band on Danielle's finger with trembling hands. She did the same, smiling through her tears. What God has joined together, let no man separate, declared Father Gonzalez. You may kiss the bride. Robert lifted Danielle's veil and kissed her gently. The entire church erupted in applause. The newlyweds embraced, radiant with happiness. In that moment, Robert looked towards where I was sitting. He smiled and gave me a wave. His smile was genuine, full of joy. For a second, I almost forgot what I had heard that morning. But only for a second. After the ceremony, we all went out to the church courtyard for family photos. The photographers organized different groups. The bride and groom alone with his family, with her family, with all the guests. Mr. Stephen, one of the photographers, called me. We need a photo of you with the newlyweds. I stood between Robert and Danielle. Robert put his arm around my shoulders. Thanks for everything, Dad, he whispered in my ear. Without you, none of this would have been possible. Click, click, click. Perfect. A very close-knit family, commented the photographer. Close-knit. What irony. After the photos, people started to disperse to go to the reception hall. Robert and Danielle got into a car decorated with flowers that would take them to the hotel where the party would be. Dad, Robert said before getting into the car, we'll see you at the hotel, and again, thanks for everything. Seriously, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me for anything, son. Just be happy. I will. I promise. The car drove away amidst honking and cheers of joy. The other guests started walking to their cars to follow the procession. I stood there for a moment, watching my newly married son's car drive away. In a few hours, Robert and Danielle would be on their first night as husband and wife. Early tomorrow, they would take the plane to Maui, excited to start their dream honeymoon. And tomorrow at noon, when they arrived at the hotel, they would discover the first real lesson Stephen Miller was going to teach his son. The lesson that actions have consequences. The lesson that words hurt. And the lesson that this useless old man had been listening the whole time. I got in my car and drove slowly to the reception hotel. A part of me felt sad for what I had done, but a larger part felt at peace. For the first time in years, I felt respected, and Robert was about to learn why. The reception was at the Phoenix Grand Hotel, an elegant but not overly expensive place. Robert had insisted that he didn't want me to spend a lot on the party. With what you already spent on the honeymoon, it's more than enough, Dad, he had told me. How considerate of him, right? I arrived at the hotel, and the ballroom was already full of guests. There were mariachis playing in a corner, tables decorated with white floral centerpieces, and a buffet that looked delicious. Robert and Danielle had chosen everything with good taste. I sat at the main table next to Danielle's parents. During dinner, Mr. Mitchell and I talked about work, about the economy, about things older men talk about. It was a pleasant, normal conversation. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Mitchell said to me as we had a glass of wine, I wanted to personally thank you for what you did for the kids with the honeymoon trip. You don't have to thank me for anything, Mr. Mitchell. Robert is my only son. Even so, that gesture speaks very well of you. Danielle was thrilled when she found out. She says she's never been to such a luxurious place. I'm glad she's happy. Maui is beautiful. My wife and I went a few years ago for our anniversary. Have you been? No, I've never been, but from what I researched, the hotel where they'll be staying is one of the best. I lied. They wouldn't be staying at any hotel anymore. During dinner, Robert came to our table several times. Each time he thanked me again. He introduced me to guests I didn't know as my dad, the best man in the world, and included me in all the conversations. It was the perfect performance. The grateful, affectionate son who respected and loved his father. "Dad," he said, in one of those moments, "I want you to know that when we get back from Maui, Danielle, and I want to invite you to dinner to tell you all about the trip." "I'd love that, son. And we also want to start coming over to the house more often. Danielle says she loves talking with you, that you remind her of her grandfather. The house is always open for you." "Thanks, Dad, seriously. I think now that I'm married, I'm going to value family more." Value family more. If only he knew it was already too late for that. The party went on until after 10 at night. There was dancing, more mariachi music, the typical bride and groom's waltz. Robert and Danielle looked radiant, completely in love. When it was time to cut the cake, Robert asked for a microphone. "I want to thank everyone for joining us on this very special day," he said with his arm around Danielle's waist. "But most of all, I want to thank my dad, Stephen Miller." Everyone turned to look at me. They started applauding. "My dad," Robert continued, "he's been the pillar of my life since I was born. After my mom died, he became both father and mother to me. He gave me education, values, unconditional love. And now to start my marriage, he gave me the most incredible honeymoon that Danielle and I could have ever dreamed of." More applause. People were shouting, "Let Mr. Stevens speak." "Without my dad." Robert continued, his voice breaking with emotion. "I wouldn't be the man I am today. Everything good I have, I owe to him. Thank you, Dad. I love you." Robert came over to me and gave me a strong, long hug. A hug that seemed completely sincere. And you know what the most confusing part was? In that moment, hugging my son, hearing his words of thanks, seeing the tears in his eyes. For a second, I doubted if I had done the right thing. For a second, I thought, what if he really does love me? What if those words from the morning were just a moment of frustration? What if I'm being too harsh? But then I remembered his laugh. That cruel laugh when he said, "Useless old man." And I remembered the mocking tone when he said, "It's a piece of cake to handle him." And all my doubts vanished. "Thank you, son," I said when he pulled away from the hug. "May you be very happy." The party ended around midnight. The guests said their goodbyes one by one. Robert and Danielle stayed until the end, thanking each person who left. When only the close family remained, Robert approached me one last time. "Dad, we leave very early for the airport tomorrow. The flight is at 8:30. "I know, son. Have a good trip. Are you coming to see us off? If you want, yes? Of course we want you to. Right, my love?" he asked Danielle. "Of course, Dad." Danielle replied, giving me a kiss on the cheek. "Without you, this trip wouldn't be possible." If only she knew how true that was. "We'll pick you up at 6:30, Robert told me. "That way we can have breakfast together before we go." "Perfect. I'll be waiting." We said goodbye there at the hotel entrance. Robert and Danielle got into a taxi that would take them to his apartment, where they would spend their first night as husband and wife. I drove back home in silence. The city was quiet, there was hardly any traffic. The whole way I thought about what had just happened. The wedding had been beautiful. Robert had married a good woman. Danielle's family were decent people. Everything had gone perfectly, except for one small detail that Robert would discover in a few hours. I got home and sat in the living room, still dressed in my wedding suit. The house was very quiet. On the coffee table were the gifts some guests had brought for Robert and Danielle. Kitchen appliances, towels, household items. I sat there thinking about the day that had passed. About the photos, the ceremony Roberts thanks, the hugs, the words of love. And I thought about how strange life is, how someone can act with so much affection in public and speak with such contempt in private. At 1 in the morning, my phone rang. It was a message from Robert. Dad, thank you for the most beautiful day of my life. I love you very much. See you in a few hours for breakfast. I read the message 3 times, and each time I read it, it confirmed more and more that I had made the right decision. Because if Robert truly loved me as he said, he would never have spoken about me that way. If he truly respected me, he would never have called me a useless old man. If he truly valued everything I had done for him, he would never have said it was a piece of cake to manipulate me. I changed my clothes, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. But I couldn't fall asleep immediately. My mind kept racing, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was about to happen. In a few hours, Robert and Danielle would be at the airport, excited for their trip. In a few more hours, they would be flying to Maui, imagining the perfect week that awaited them. And at noon, when they arrived at the hotel and approached the reception desk to check in, they would hear the words that would change everything. I'm very sorry, Mr. Miller, but we don't have any reservation under your name. That was going to be the first lesson, but it wasn't going to be the last. I woke up at 5 in the morning without needing an alarm. I had slept restlessly all night thinking about what was going to happen that Sunday. I got up, showered, dressed in comfortable clothes, and made extra strong coffee. I was going to need all my energy for what was coming. At 6:15, my phone rang. Good morning, Dad. It was Robert's cheerful voice. We're ready? We'll be there in 15 minutes. I'll be waiting, son. Did you have breakfast yet? No, I was waiting to have breakfast with you. Perfect. Danielle wants to go to that restaurant on the way to the airport, the one with those chilaquiles I love so much. Whatever you want. At 6:30 sharp, they arrived. Robert honked from outside. I left the house, locked the door, and got into the back seat of his car. Good morning, Dad. Danielle greeted me from the passenger seat. She looked radiant, wearing a yellow blouse and jeans. Did you sleep well? Very well, honey. And you? How did you feel on your first night as a married couple? Robert laughed. Weird, right, my love, waking up knowing we're already husband and wife. Beautiful, Danielle replied, taking his hand. I can't believe we're already married. We drove to the El Buen Comer restaurant, a simple place with delicious food on the way to the airport. During the drive, Robert and Danielle couldn't stop talking about their trip. You know what I'm most excited about, Dad, Danielle said, turning to me. The hotel spa. Robert told me you booked treatments for both of us. Yes, honey. I thought that after all the stress of the wedding, you could use some relaxation. What a beautiful thought. I've never had a professional massage. You're going to love it, my love, Robert told her. And the hotel restaurants look incredible in the photos. We're going to eat like kings. And the catamaran cruise, Danielle added. Oh, Dad, you really didn't have to spend so much. It's the most beautiful wedding gift anyone could ask for, Robert said, looking at me in the rearview mirror. Seriously, Dad, I don't know how to thank you. He was about to find out very soon. We got to the restaurant and asked for a table near the window. Robert ordered red chilaquiles with chicken, Danielle ordered huevos rancheros, and I had coffee with toast. I wasn't very hungry. Nervous about the flight, Dad? Robert asked me. Why would I be nervous? I don't know. Sometimes older people get scared when their children travel by plane. No, son. I just want you to be happy. We're going to be. I promise you we're going to enjoy every minute of this trip. Danielle took out her phone and showed me pictures of the hotel she had found online. "Look, Dad, how beautiful it looks. The pools, the beaches, the restaurants. It's like paradise." "It looks very nice, honey. Robert told me the suite you reserved has an ocean view." "Is that true?" "I hope so." I lied. "Oh, how exciting. I'm going to take millions of photos to show you when we get back." Throughout breakfast, they kept talking about the trip, plans for each day, places they wanted to visit, restaurants where they wanted to dine. They had everything calculated minute by minute. And I listened to them, nodding, smiling, pretending that everything was going to go as they expected. "What time do you think we'll get to the hotel, my love?" Danielle asked Robert. "The flight arrives at 11:45. With the transfer to the hotel, I figure we'll be there by noon. Perfect for lunch, and then hitting the beach." Noon. Exactly when they were going to get the surprise of their lives. We finished breakfast and drove to the airport. On the way, Robert played upbeat music and sang along with Danielle. They looked like the happiest couple in the world. At the airport, I helped them get the suitcases out of the car. 2 large suitcases full of beach clothes, swimsuits, light dresses for the romantic dinners they thought they were going to have. "Well, Dad," Robert said to me at the airport entrance, "this is the goodbye moment. Have a great trip, kids." Danielle hugged me first. "Thank you for everything, Dad. Really, you're an angel. Take care of yourselves, honey. And take care of this boy." "Of course." Then Robert hugged me. A long, strong hug. "Dad, I have no words to thank you for everything you've done for me. Not just this trip, but my whole life. You're the best father anyone could have. Just be happy, Robert. It's the only thing I want. I will be. I promise that when we get back, I'm going to be a better son. I'm going to visit you more. I'm going to include you more in my life. It's about time I grew up." How strange that he would say that right now. "I love you, Dad. And I love you too, son." He pulled away from the hug and took the suitcases. "See you in a week. We'll bring you something nice from Maui." "I don't need anything. Just come back safe." They entered the airport carrying their suitcases, turning to wave at me. I watched them walk away until they disappeared into the crowd of travelers. I got in my car and drove back home. It was 8 in the morning. Their flight left at 8:30. In 3.5 hours, they would be landing in Maui. In 4 hours, they would be standing at the reception of the Grand Hyatt, with their suitcases, their smiles, and their expectations of a perfect week. And the clerk would tell them, "I'm very sorry, but no reservation appears under the name Robert Miller." I got home and made another coffee. I sat in the living room in the same armchair where I had been sitting the day before when I heard Robert talking on the phone. I looked at the clock. 8:45. Their plane had already taken off. There was no turning back. For the next 3 hours, I tried to watch TV, read the newspaper, do anything to distract myself. But my mind kept calculating the times. 9:30, they're in the air. 10:30, they've been flying for 2 hours. 11:30, they must be starting their descent. At noon sharp, my phone rang. It was an unknown number with a Maui area code. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello? Dad." It was Robert's voice, but it sounded different, confused, worried. "Hello, son. Did you arrive safely?" "Yes, Dad, but there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "We're at the hotel, but I don't know how to explain it. They say there's no reservation in our name." I paused as if I were surprised. What do you mean there's no reservation? That's impossible. That's what I told the man at the reception. I showed him the vouchers you gave me, but he says everything was canceled yesterday. Canceled by whom? I don't know, Dad. Did you cancel something? Another pause, longer this time. Robert, I said in a very calm voice, I need to ask you something. What is it, Dad? Did you really think I wasn't going to find out what you said yesterday morning? Complete silence on the other end of the line. Dad, I don't understand what you're talking about. You don't understand. You seriously don't understand. More silence. Our honeymoon is going to be paid for by that useless old man. Does that phrase sound familiar, Robert? The silence on the other end of the line lasted for almost a full minute. I could hear the background noise of the hotel lobby voices of other guests, ambient music, but Robert said nothing. I imagine he was standing there with the phone in his hand, with Danielle by his side, wondering what was happening, trying to process what he had just heard. Dad, he finally spoke, his voice breaking. I don't know what you're talking about. Really, Robert? You're going to keep lying, even now that you know I heard you. Another silence, shorter this time. Dad, I think there's a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, son. I heard you perfectly when you told Danielle that the useless old man was going to pay for everything and that he wouldn't even suspect a thing. I heard you when you said it was a piece of cake to handle me. I heard you when you laughed at me. Dad, please. You know what hurts the most, Robert? It's not that you called me a useless old man. It's not that you said it was easy to manipulate me. What hurts the most is that for 37 years I thought I had a son who loved me, and it turns out I only had a son who used me. That's not true, Dad. I do love you. You love me. Is that how you love Robert? By mocking the people you love, by calling them useless behind their backs. I heard someone else take the phone. It was Danielle's voice. Dad, it's Danielle. I don't understand what's happening. Robert is very upset and won't explain it to me. Danielle, my dear, your husband can explain perfectly well what's happening. Ask him what he said about me yesterday morning when he was talking to you on the phone. Robert, what is your dad talking about? I heard voices in the background, as if Robert was whispering something to Danielle. Dad. Danielle came back on the phone, but now her voice sounded different, colder. You canceled our honeymoon because of a private conversation between Robert and me. Danielle. I didn't cancel anything because of a private conversation. I canceled everything because of a lack of respect that I am not willing to tolerate. But Dad, we don't have money to pay for a hotel here. We spent all our savings on the wedding and the plane tickets. I know, my dear, and I'm very sorry for you, because you're not to blame for anything, but your husband is. Robert took the phone again. Dad, okay. I get the message. But Danielle shouldn't have to pay for something I did. Please tell me how we can fix this. Fix what, Robert? The reservation. Tell me what I have to do for you to reactivate the reservation. Nothing can be reactivated, son. Everything is canceled and there is no refund. Everything, the tours too, the restaurants, everything. But Dad, that cost a fortune. Exactly. And I lost it all because of your mouth. Dad, please. I know I was wrong. I know what I said was very bad. But please think about it. Are you really going to destroy your only son's honeymoon over a few words? I said without thinking. Without thinking, Robert. Are you listening to yourself? Calling me a useless old man wasn't without thinking. saying it was a piece of cake to manipulate me wasn't without thinking. Laughing at me wasn't without thinking. It was exactly what you think of your father. It's not what I think of you. Then why did you say it? Why what, Robert? Because I was showing off to Danielle. I wanted her to know that I had everything under control. That I had gotten an incredible trip for our honeymoon. Ah, so you used me to show off. How nice. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? Explain it to me, Robert. Explain how calling your father a useless old man is a way of showing love. Danielle took the phone again. Dad, please. I know Robert made a mistake, but can't you forgive him? We're here in the hotel lobby with our suitcases, not knowing what to do. We don't have money for another hotel. You know what, Danielle? For years I have forgiven Robert. I have forgiven him for asking me for money every month. I have forgiven him for only visiting me when he needs something. I have forgiven him for never asking me how I am, for never offering to help me with anything. I have forgiven so much that I became exactly what he said. A useless old man who is easy to handle. Dad. It was Robert again. But not anymore, son, I'm not going to continue allowing myself to be disrespected. I'm your father, not your personal bank, and I deserve a little dignity. You're right, Dad. You're absolutely right. I've been a bad son, but please give me a chance to fix it. How are you going to fix it, Robert? I don't know. Whatever you want. Tell me what I have to do. What you have to do is learn to live without Dad solving all your problems. What you have to do is find a way to pay for your own honeymoon. What you have to do is stop seeing your father as your financial emergency plan. But Dad, we don't have money. That's not my problem anymore, Robert. That's your problem. You're a 37-year-old married man. It's time you acted like one. So what are we supposed to do? Go back to Phoenix. Do whatever you want. But do it with your own money. Dad, please, I promise that when we get back, we'll talk. I'll show you that I can change. Robert, promises don't interest me anymore. Actions interest me. And the fact is that for 37 years, you've seen me as a fool you can manipulate at will. Well, the fool has woken up. You're not a fool, Dad. You're my father. And I love you. If you loved me, you would never have spoken about me the way you did. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Robert. It was your true opinion of me. And you know what? Maybe you were right. Maybe I was a useless old man for many years, but not anymore. What do you want me to do then? I want you to learn to solve your own problems. I want you to learn to value what you have. And I want you to learn that words have consequences. Okay, Dad. Message received. But please at least tell me, is there any way we can fix this? Any way you can forgive me? Forgiveness is earned, Robert, not asked for. And how do I earn it? You have to figure that out on your own. Because part of the problem is that I've always had to tell you what to do, how to do it, and even pay you to do it. There was another long silence. Dad, Robert finally said, with a voice I hadn't heard in years. A scared child's voice. Do you hate me? The question took me by surprise. For a moment, all my anger turned into sadness. I don't hate you, Robert. I love you. That's why what you said hurts so much. That's why it hurts so much to realize that to you, I'm just a source of money. You're not just that. Then what else am I to you? When was the last time you visited me without needing something? When was the last time you called me just to see how I was? Silence. Exactly, I continued. You can't answer because it hasn't happened. I'm going to change that, Dad. I swear. We'll see, son. We'll see. Dad, Robert said in a trembling voice, give me one last chance. Please tell me what I can do to fix this. I already told you, Robert. This isn't fixed with words. It's fixed with actions. And you have to take those actions yourself. But I don't know where to start. Start by solving your honeymoon without my help. Start by acting like the married man you are now. I heard him talking to Danielle in a low voice. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but it sounded like an argument. Dad, he came back to the phone. Danielle says there are cheaper hotels in the hotel zone that maybe we can find something within our budget. That sounds like an excellent idea, son. But, what about the tours you had booked and the special dinners? All of that is lost, too. Everything, Robert. Absolutely everything. But Dad, that was a lot of money. It was a lot of money that I spent with a lot of love thinking about making my son happy. And it turns out my son thinks I'm a useless old man. I don't think that anymore. Oh, you don't? Since when did you change your mind? Since you realized you got caught. Since I realized how much I hurt you. Robert, do you know the difference between being sorry for hurting someone and being sorry for getting caught hurting someone? What? If you were truly sorry for hurting me, you never would have hurt me in the first place. But since you're only sorry you got caught, the only thing you regret are the consequences. There was a long pause. I could hear the murmur of the hotel lobby, the sound of rolling suitcases, people speaking in English and Spanish. You're right, Robert finally said. You're absolutely right, Dad. I've been selfish my whole life. And what are you going to do about it? I don't know. You tell me. Robert, are you listening to yourself? Even to change, you want me to tell you how. Don't you realize that's exactly the attitude that I'm sick of? Sorry, Dad. You're right again. Danielle took the phone again. Dad. It's Danielle. Robert told me everything that happened. What he said was very wrong, and I completely understand why you're angry. Thank you for understanding, my dear. But Dad, don't you think Robert has learned his lesson? He's super sorry. He won't stop crying. Danielle, Robert isn't crying because he's sorry for what he said. He's crying because his free money ran out. I don't think that's it, Dad. Really, Danielle? Tell me one thing, had Robert ever told you that I give him money constantly? Well, yes, he had mentioned that you help him when he has emergencies. Emergencies? He told you they were emergencies? Yes. And how many emergencies has Robert had in the 2 years you've been together? Danielle fell silent. Think about it, dear. How many times has Robert had to ask his dad for money for some emergency? Well, now that I think about it, it's been several times. Several or many. Many, Danielle admitted in a small voice. Exactly because to Robert, I'm not his dad. I'm his ATM. But Dad, that's going to change. I'll make sure it changes. No, Danielle, you're not going to make sure of anything. That's not your responsibility. It's Robert's responsibility to change for himself. Robert took the phone again. Dad, we found a hotel. It's simpler, but it's clean and has a pool. We can afford it. I'm very glad to hear that, son. Really? Of course. I'm glad you're solving your problems on your own. Dad, do you think you'll ever forgive me? Robert, I already forgave you. Forgiveness isn't the problem. Then what is the problem? The problem is trust. I give forgiveness. But you have to earn trust. And how do I earn it? By proving that you've really changed, not with words, but with actions. What kind of actions? Robert. There you go again. Don't you see you're asking me what to do instead of thinking for yourself what you should do? You're right, Dad. I'm sorry. When you get back from Maui, if you really want to regain my trust, you're going to have to show me that you can be a real son, not just when you need something. Will you give me that chance? Robert. I've always given you chances. The problem is you've never taken advantage of them. This time will be different. I hope so, son. For your sake and for the sake of your marriage. What do you mean? I mean that Danielle is realizing what you're really like, and I don't think she likes what she's seeing very much. Danielle, is she still there? Yes, I'm here, said Danielle. She had clearly been listening to the whole conversation. My love, please don't judge me for this. I know I behaved badly with my dad, but that doesn't mean I'm going to treat you badly. Robert, Danielle said, in a voice that sounded different, more mature. If that's how you treat your dad, the man who gave you life and has given you everything, how do I know you won't treat me the same way when it's convenient for you? Because I love you. You're supposed to love your dad too, and look how you talk about him. Robert fell silent. Danielle is right, I said, and it's something you should think about very seriously. Dad, Robert said in a desperate voice, please help me. Tell Danielle I can change. Robert, are you asking me to help you convince your wife that you're not the person you just proved you are? Yes. No. I don't know. Son, if you want Danielle to trust you, you have to earn that trust yourself, just like with me. I heard someone speaking English in the background, probably hotel employees asking if they needed help. Dad, Danielle said to me, we're going to go to the other hotel now, but I want you to know that I now understand many things I didn't understand before. Like what, dear? Like why Robert always has money to go out with his friends, but never has any to help me when I need something. Like why he never wants us to visit you on weekends. Like why he always makes excuses when I suggest we buy you something nice for Father's Day. Danielle, Robert tried to interrupt. No, Robert. Let me speak. Your dad is right. You've been taking advantage of him for years. And I didn't realize it. My love, please. Robert, I married you thinking you were a responsible and independent man. But it turns out you're a 37-year-old man who still depends on his dad for everything. I can change. I hope so, Robert. Because if you don't change, our marriage is going to have a lot of problems. I was impressed. Danielle had understood in an hour what had taken me years to accept. Well, kids, I said, I'll leave you to go to your hotel and sort out your situation. Dad, Robert said, when we get back, can we talk? Of course, son. My house is always open for you. Thanks, Dad. And I'm sorry, seriously. I'm sorry for everything. I know Robert now, prove it to me. I hung up the phone and sat in my living room in silence, processing everything that had happened. For the first time in years, I felt respected. For the first time in years, I had set boundaries. And for the first time in years, Robert was going to have to face the consequences of his actions. The question was he really going to learn from this lesson? Or was he just going to wait until my anger subsided to go back to his old ways? Only time would tell. The next 7 days were the quietest I had had in years. No calls from Robert asking for money. No emergencies that I had to solve. No excuses that I had to believe. Just silence. A silence that made me uncomfortable at first, but that I gradually learned to enjoy. On Wednesday of that week, Mrs. Carmichael, my neighbor, came to visit me. Mr. Stephen, how are the kids in Maui? Have they sent you pictures yet? They're fine, Mrs. Carmichael. Enjoying their honeymoon? How lovely. You can tell Robert has a father who loves him very much. Not every father gives a trip like that. Yes, I said. But sometimes loving too much can be a mistake. What do you mean? Sometimes when we love our children so much, we give them everything so easily that we don't teach them the value of things, Mrs. Carmichael looked at me curiously, but I didn't explain further. Some lessons everyone has to learn for themselves. On Friday, I received a text message from Robert. It just said, "Dad, Maui is beautiful. Thanks for the lesson. I love you." I didn't reply. It was still too soon for nice words. On Sunday afternoon, they came back. Robert called me from the airport. "Dad, we're back in Phoenix. Can we come over to the house?" "Of course." "You're not mad." "I'm not mad, Robert. I'm waiting." "Waiting for what?" "To see if you really learned something, or if you just want things to go back to the way they were." An hour later, they arrived at the house. Robert knocked on the door instead of using his key, as he always did. A small but significant detail. I opened the door, and there they were. Robert looked different, more serious, as if he had aged in that week. Danielle also looked different, more mature, as if she had seen something she didn't like very much. "Hi, Dad," Robert said. "Hi, son. How was the trip?" "Different from what we expected, but well, we learned a lot." I invited them in. They sat in the living room in the same place they always sat. But this time there was something different in the atmosphere. "Dad," Robert said, "I want to apologize not just for what I said on my wedding day, but for everything for years of taking advantage of you, of treating you as if you were my obligation instead of my blessing." "I'm listening, Robert." "During this week when we had to pay for our own hotel, our own food, our own tours, I realized how much you have given me throughout my life, and I realized how little I have given you in return." Danielle spoke too. "Dad, I also want to apologize for not realizing sooner how Robert treated you, for being part of the problem without knowing it." "You don't owe me any apologies, kids. But you do owe me respect. And above all, Robert, you owe yourself respect." "What do you mean?" "I mean that a 37-year-old man shouldn't need his dad to solve his life for him. I mean that a husband shouldn't depend on his father-in-law to support his family." Robert lowered his head. "You're right, Dad. And that's why I've decided something." "What did you decide?" "I've decided that I'm not going to ask you for money anymore. For anything. Not for emergencies, not for anything. I'm going to learn to live on what I earn. And what if you really have an emergency? Then I'll get a loan from the bank, or sell something, or work extra. But I'm not going to bother you anymore." "Robert," I said, "that's very good. But I want you to understand something." "What?" "It's not just about the money. It's about respect. It's about valuing what you have. It's about understanding that I'm not your emergency plan. I'm your father." "I understand, Dad." "Do you really understand?" "Yes. And that's why I also decided something else." "What else did you decide?" "I want to start visiting you every Sunday. Not because I need something, but because I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know you as a person, not just as my source of money." Those words reached my heart. For years I had been waiting to hear something like that. "And I want to come too," Danielle added. "I want you to teach me how to cook the recipes that Mrs. Mary liked. I want to hear stories from when Robert was a child. I want to be a part of this family, for real." "I'd love that, dear." "Dad," Robert said, "I know I can't erase 37 years of being a bad son in 1 week. but I want to try. I want to be the son you deserved to have. Robert, you have always been the son I deserved to have. The problem is that I wasn't the father you needed. I gave you everything so easily. That I didn't teach you to value anything. Do you forgive me, Dad? I already told you I forgive you, son. But now I need you to show me that you've really changed. How? With actions, Robert. Only with actions. We talked until late. For the first time in years, Robert asked me how I was feeling, how I had been during the week if I needed help with anything around the house. For the first time in years, he seemed genuinely interested in my well-being. Danielle helped me make coffee, and she told me about the simple hotel where they stayed, about how Robert had to look for cheap restaurants, about how for the first time she saw him calculate every dollar before spending it. It was good for him, Dad, she told me. It made him more aware of what things cost. When they left that night, Robert hugged me in a different way. It wasn't the usual quick hug, but a long hug. One of those that hurt a little because you know they are full of real regret. Thank you, Dad, he whispered in my ear. Thank you for teaching me this lesson. I know it hurt you to do it, but it was necessary. The following months were different. Robert kept his word. He came every Sunday sometimes just to talk, sometimes to help me with things around the house. Danielle came too, and little by little she became the daughter I never had. He didn't ask me for money a single time. Not even when his car broke down and he had to walk to work for a week while he saved up money for the repair. But the most important thing wasn't that he stopped asking me for money. The most important thing was that he started treating me like his father, not his personal bank. And I learned something too. I learned that sometimes to truly help the people we love, we have to stop helping them. I learned that true love sometimes hurts, but that pain is necessary for growth. I learned that it's never too late to teach respect or to demand dignity. And I learned that this useless old man still had many lessons to teach. 6 months later, Robert called me one day to tell me that he and Danielle had saved enough to go on vacation on their own. To Key West, a more modest place than Maui, but paid for with their own effort. Dad, he said, these are going to be our first real vacation. The first ones we paid for ourselves. And how does that feel? It feels incredible, Dad. It feels like being a real adult. And that's why, son, I say it's never too late to teach, and it's never too late to learn. Now you tell me, if it were you, what would you have done in my place? And take the opportunity. Tell me, from what corner of this world are you listening to me?